Hello and welcome, phone booth fighting listeners. My name is Richard Hunter. That guy. Introduce yourself, everybody. Kind of low profile all these years. Who's that over there?
I'm hiding out here. Frank Mir with Phone Booth
Frank,
Fighting.
two-time UFC heavyweight champion, current world-class podcaster. And Frank is at his house. I'm at my house. Both of us very close to each other, yet worlds apart by the grace of the damnable plague of the coronavirus here in Las Vegas. Frank, we got fights to talk about. First of all, we want to welcome everybody to the live broadcast. Jump in the chat with your questions and comments. If you're new to the Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. Frank and I are doing this Phone Booth Fighting podcast for almost 5 years. And we do a free weekly version that you can get on our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, as well as iTunes and all the other places podcasts are available. Also, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/phone booth fighting. And we do extra episodes there throughout the week. So, for example, if you were on our page earlier this week, you heard a detailed breakdown of Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone, and also the heavyweight fight between Rosenstruck and Francis Ngannou. But we're not done there. We've got a couple of more fights to break down for you tonight live on YouTube. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Please don't let this be the only time, and come over and see us on the Phone Booth Fighting podcast. All right, Frank. Where do you want? I figured maybe we'll start the co-main event. By the way, we have some breaking news to talk about. One of the fights has been canceled. We'll get to that here in a second. But I thought maybe we'd start with the co-main event, that being Henry Cejudo taking on the returning Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz has been out of action for for over 3 years now, and not the first time he's been out of action, an extended period of time, only to come back and shock the world. First off, your initial thoughts about this matchup and Cruz stepping in as a replacement for Jose Aldo.
You know what? The one thing I think that's ever held Cruz back from being considered one of the best in the world, pound for pound, is injuries. You know, he's fought so infrequently over the last 10 years. Because he's always it's like massive catastrophic injury after catastrophic injury. You know, he blows his ACL, then comes back, blows it out again. I mean, he's having some major, issues that that are just really just a string of bad luck. But because of that, it really puts him in a unique position that most guys, I would say, that have fought in as infrequently as he has, coming back and fighting against the champ, Cejudo, I would say, hey, man, this is a tall order. This is a lot to ask of somebody to come off of a 3-year layoff and show up and fight the number one guy in the division. But Cruz is capable of doing it. He's done it time after time again, where he's come off of a long layoff and doesn't look rusty. He because of his training, because of his mindset, I think because of his diligent just love of the martial arts and how he's constantly training it, and just how scientific he is about it, he's able to just jump right off of the off the mat, out of the dojo, and right into the ring, the cage, and perform at a high level. So I really think that this is a phenomenal fight for him. I think that I'm actually taking him in this fight as a possibility of winning.
So Cruz has fought, not only has he had a 3-year layoff, he's only fought 4 times in the past 9 years. And he's in his mid-30s. When I think of Dominick Cruz, I mean, probably the number one attribute I always think of is some of the best footwork in the history of the UFC, so any weight division, some of the best movement anybody's ever seen. So when it comes to footwork and speed, we've always talked with the heavyweights about how power is the last thing to go. Where does speed and footwork fit into that equation as it relates to age? When do you expect to see diminishing skills where that's concerned?
I actually don't think footwork diminishes at all, to be honest with you, or just no more than any of the other assets. I think what starts to diminish in people is reaction time. I think that's why you see it more prevalent in baseball players, a batter having to see the ball. And so when we're talking about, milliseconds of reaction time. But as far as speed, as far as power, I remember I had a conversation with Jose Canseco about this, and we were sitting in a group of guys, and people were like, well, Jose, you still have it. He goes, well, no, if I hit the ball, I have it. I'm just as powerful and just as quick as I've ever been, or almost as in my peak in my, 30s. Mm-hmm. He goes, but back in my 30s, if you threw a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, I could hit that all day long. It looks slow to me. He goes, now, if you threw it 85 miles an hour at me, I can't see it. It's completely will blow by me. I wouldn't even know you threw the ball. And it dawned on me that that's what happens in sometimes the later, lower weight classes. It's the speed that the guys have to get out of the way of the punches. But I think that is more prevalent in boxing because they fight at a closer distance. So I think that reaction time is much more important. Because MMA, we fight at a farther distance, reaction time becomes more technique. And that's what you see in Dominic Cruz, somebody who's very technical, where he steps off of, he's not reacting even so much off your punch, he's reacting off your body. As he steps in a certain direction, he steps off of a lead, he knows where he has to move his head to be out of danger. He's not reacting to whether you're throwing a punch or a hook or a straight or a kick. He's reacting to, oh, I'm in danger if I stay here, and this is where I'll be safe according to where your feet are. And because he's such a scientist at it, I think that that's going to stay with him all the way until he just, obviously Father Time catches up to all of us. But I really don't think age at this point is going to come into any kind of detriment into his style.
What about how Cejudo, or I should say, how Cruz stacks up in similarities to Demetrius Johnson? Cejudo has against Demetrius Johnson, although you think Demetrius won that fight, but nonetheless, definitely Cejudo had some success. How do you think, if we look at the matchup with Cruz, could in any way parallel the challenges for Cejudo?
Well, I think that's why Cejudo's going to have a hard time in this fight. He's giving up a ton of reach. Demetrius Johnson outstruck him. Demetrius Johnson couldn't outstrike Dominic Cruz. That was where it was very difficult. He had to put more of a grappling show on and get some takedowns and to enforce his will there, and kept it close in the striking range. I think that Dominic Cruz, because of his reach, because of his footwork, this fight's going to be fought at such a distance that Cejudo is going to have to really be explosive, jumping in almost to cover distance because of his lack of height, lack of reach. And I think that that's going to cause him to make mistakes and run into things and be much easier for Cruz to defend shots. I think that, let's not forget, Cejudo was the 125-pound champ. He moved up to 135. He has the structure to make 125. Cruz does not have the structure to make 125. He would die if he made 125. He's just a much bigger human being, much taller, much longer. I think that he has a lot of physical attributes. And even in the weigh-ins, in the face-off, you guys are really going to see the difference in height and reach.
Cruz had the chance to pull off, this would be a tremendous upset. It would once again be one of the greatest career comebacks in UFC history. And Cruz has really, he's already done that once in the Miyazaki fight. You said you kind of like him to win this. It does seem like it has all things for an upset. Do you think Cejudo is slightly favored in the fight? How much of a chance of an upset do you think there really is?
Right now, if people were to call me up and ask me who to bet on, I would say take Cruz. I really feel confident. I think the only factor that really has me betting, maybe, curious on what I'm going to see in Cejudo, is I do know he went down to Colombia, the same place I went to, and he got some, he did the stem cell with a bioaccelerator. So I'm expecting to see a very healthy, rejuvenated, because I know how I feel. So I'm going to see probably the best version of Cejudo that we've seen in years, because, he was already a gold medalist at 18 years of age. That's a lot of miles that this guy has put on his body. And so I'm sure that's caught up to him, even though he's a relatively young man. I'm curious to see what performance he's going to bring out, how much better he could possibly be. So there is still that X factor there that doesn't make me completely think this is one-sided. I mean, we're still talking about a high-level, Olympic-level caliber wrestler. I feel that because of the weight class of where each guy really stands, the distances and the style of fight that Cruz is able to do, how hard he is to take down, how he's able to keep the fight at distance. You know, Cruz has fought many guys that have had a very difficult time putting him down. I mean, Uriah Faber kind of has a very similar style to Cejudo, a very wrestling-based style that has a powerful punch off the backside like Cejudo does. Cejudo has a very strong, right hand, that he's crossed, that he won the the bantamweight championship against TJ Dillashaw with. He does have power there, and obviously, we saw against the fight with Demetrius Johnson how good his takedowns are, who takes down Demetrius and holds him down for any length of time. But that is a style that, Cruz has seen, 15 years ago when he first fought Faber, and we've seen how success he's had there after the rematches he had. So I just think that, even though he's coming off of a long layoff, I don't know. There's just my gut feeling and my intuition's really telling me that, this is a Cruz, upset in the making.
What do you make of Cejudo's momentum over the last, I'll say, 5 fights? I mean, he's on a 3-fight or he's on a 5-fight win streak. 3 of those fights have been TKO finishes. I mean, after a little stumble here and there toward the beginning of his UFC run, it really does seem like he has found some footing there. What do you make of that momentum?
I think that obviously if we go back in tapes, I don't really know if he won the Demetrius Johnson fight. Mm-hmm. I was leaning towards Johnson in that one, but obviously super close fight. I'm not going to argue either way on it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an upset. That's not a robbery. That was a super close fight that could have gone either way. But then obviously the TJ Dillashaw fight, wow. It showed the power that he has in his hands. And the Moraes fight, same thing. He really showed his ability as a striker to bear down, take shots, and throw back and be powerful. So I think he's shown that he has other attributes on top of obviously his world-class wrestling that he is developing. And, he's just a powerful athlete when it comes to striking and power and speed. So he's able to close distance very quickly and throw that powerful cross, which he's going to need against Dominic Cruz, because Dominic is a master of distance.
We got a lot of questions going in the live chat right now. Thanks to everybody for jumping in with us. We'll get to those in a moment. If you have questions or comments, add them into the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them. A lot of questions about the breaking news that got one of the fights canceled. We'll get to that here momentarily. But I also want to ask you about a heavyweight attraction that is taking place between 2 of the all-time submission greats in the UFC, also between 2 of the older gentlemen in the UFC. Both these guys are seeing you, Frank. We got a couple of 42-year-olds getting in there. Fabricio Verdum and Alexei Olenek. Now, Fabricio, one-time champ, coming off a 2-year suspension, banned substance, was reduced to 10 months. He's coming off a loss. If you go all the way back to his fight, he was KO'd in the 4th round by Alexander Volkov. And Olenek just fought this past January, an armbar submission victory over Maurice Green. I think one of the real items of intrigue here, Frank, obviously the grappling pedigrees of these 2 guys, but also the mission prowess of Alexei Olenek. You're talking about a guy 58-13-1 with 46 submission victories. And a lot of people are going to note tied with Stefan Struve for 2nd all-time heavyweight submissions with 6. That's only 2 behind you. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a great fight. I kind of suspect, knowing Verdum, that this fight might not be much of a grappling. So as much as I know a lot of people are wanting this to be a grappling match, looking at Olenek's stand-up, knowing what it is, and knowing how good really Verdum's stand-up really is. I think people have underestimated it over the years and have seen how well he's actually done as a kickboxer. with his actual technique and his prowess in the stand-up area. I foresee this being a stand-up fight that Verdum ends up winning there. But if it goes to the ground, I think that, Olenek is a much better submission artist as far as has that hunger and that drive to go for the arm, to go for the neck. He'll sacrifice position. Hell, he'll let you mount him so he can go for an Ezekiel choke. We've seen him win that way.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't think, as a coach, if I was coaching both these guys, looking at them, that's a good game plan against Verdum. I think Verdum is too high caliber that if I was grappling against Verdum, I would not sacrifice position to go for a submission, knowing how good of a grappler he is, because he's going to make you pay for it. Some guys you can get away with that on. I don't know if Olenek is going to be able to get away with that on Verdum. If Verdum mounts him, I don't think Olenek is going to be able to choke him. So that's the point of where I think that even though Olenek is a great submission artist, I don't think he's going to be able to out grapple and out position the jiu-jitsu positioning of Verdum on the ground to be in a position to threaten Verdum with anything.
What makes Fabricio Verdum so capable of, or I should say Alexei Olenek, so capable of executing that Ezekiel choke? And we'll back up for a second. For people who aren't aware, Ezekiel choke is something that is more commonly associated with gi jiu-jitsu, because when you cross your hands, you're using your own gi to execute the choke. Olenek is a guy who has been able to do this without a gi, and done it repeatedly with success. He's got the only 2 Ezekiel choke submissions in the history of the UFC. He can even do it from bottom. So as best you can, if you could sort of take everybody through it, what makes him able to do it where other people can't?
We don't know. Honestly, I've sat down, me and Drysdale, have brainstormed, trying to figure out, we've locked each other up, like trying to figure out, like, is he sticking his finger or his thumb inside the glove? What's he doing? I think that it's a combination of, one, he's motivated to get it off because he's had success with it, and 2, he obviously has a physical advantage in some way. Whatever bone structure, as far as levers he has in his forearms, whatever length he has in his thumbs, his fingers, allows him to set it up in a way that other guys just don't get quite that angle. And you see that in other things, in other areas. There are some guys that have phenomenal triangles. And I've seen some guys who really in the gym, well, I want to have a good triangle. I'm like, I hate to break you the news. You can have a great setup and you can have a great triangle, but you're never gonna have a triangle as good as that guy, because look where your femur, the length of your femur, your inseam length, the structure of your leg, the flexibility of your hips. There's certain things that make it to where you're born a certain way that make it easier to apply certain maneuvers. I mean, some guys like, Joe Stevenson back in the day with his guillotine, the way he was built, applied with technique and obviously training and repetition, allowed him to be very good at it. So, people have an affinity for certain moves. They're better at certain things. And, honestly, if I can ever sit down with him and talk to him about how he does his Ezekiel, I would be all ears, because he's able to do that. And I have yet to hear anybody explain to me well. And I don't really know why he's able to, because, I mean, even doing that to somebody from the mount, me and the guys in the gym, we got together and we're looking at it like, how did he not get armbarred? Like, how is the guy not just posting on the elbow and lifting it up and down? So we're all trying to figure it out too. So I'll be watching tomorrow night, seeing if he's able to even apply it,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would look at this at first glance and say, oh, it's going to be a matchup of submission specialists. But to your original point that you made, I think it makes all the sense for Verdum to keep this fight standing, because when you really get into the numbers, they're not the same kind of submission grapplers. Verdum has only had 4 submissions in 10 years, I think, since he fought Fedor, 11 total. But that's something that in the last 10 years, certainly the competition he's gotten away from, whereas Olenek has had 6 submissions in, I think, less than 6 years. So Olenek is a much more much more prevalent submission artist, where Verdum maybe has a more I guess comparatively comparing these two, a more well-rounded game.
Yeah, and also too, I think also with Verdum, in the last 6 years, his level of competition has been higher. It's not as easy as you go higher up the ranks to keep rattling off submissions or to keep rattling off knockouts. That's why if you're able to do so and win convincingly, the higher you get up, you start seeing more decision victories, and that's because the level of competition gets better. And so, Olenek has kind of snuck around more in the lower level of the competition rung, which has allowed him to, build it up. But that's not saying that he doesn't still have a proficiency for going for the submissions. He has, what makes him dangerous is that he goes for submissions and in routes and in ways that are just not common, and they throw guys off. So I think that's what gives him such an advantage, that even though, Verdum, I think, will always beat him as far as positional grappling and beat him as far as structure. And, if they were to have a jiu-jitsu match tomorrow, I would 100% bet on Verdum, because I'm like, oh, okay, Verdum's going to get the takedowns. Verdum's going to be in better position. Verdum's going to pass his guard. Verdum's going to mount him. I don't see Olenek passing his guard. But there's always a chance that Olenek could pull off a submission. He has that ability because he almost has like that knockout artist type submission ability from angles. I mean, his other Ezekiel, he did one while he was mounted. The other guy had him mounted, and the other one was standing. That's weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I was to grapple someone like that, or if I was coaching Verdum, be like, hey, if we do grapple him, let's keep this guy in weird positions. But if we don't have to, let's just go and punch this guy's teeth in, because we know that he's not very good on his feet at all, and he just pulls off funky things with the grappling. Let's just stay away from it.
Yeah. And Verdum himself has never been submitted. We shouldn't lose that fact. I mean, this would be a first time submission if it happened. I mean, I love the fact that in 2020 there is still some voodoo magic element to jiu-jitsu. Like it's not 1993, it's 2020, and Frank Mir and Robert Drysdale are still putting their heads together trying to figure out how this mysterious Alexei Olenek is doing this particular move. Cool.
Absolutely. If he puts a seminar and he's teaching them, man, someone give me some video footage. I'm interested.
Yeah. All right. A couple of people weighing in the chat. Some questions. Somebody wants to know, Frank, if you'd be interested in grappling Fabricio Verdum, like in a submission underground, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, Fabricio is a very good grappler, man. It'd be a very tough match. If I were to grapple him, I would have to train for it very hard and very specifically, because Verdum is a top level jiu-jitsu artist. I think that I lean a little bit more towards the submissions, but because he's so good at grappling at positions and stuff, he might not ever put himself in a position where I'm able to take advantage of him. I'm a more powerful athlete, but he's extremely technical. I mean, the guy is sharp. He's a very high level black belt in jiu-jitsu, and that would be a match that I want to see and figure out who's going to win.
All right. Well, we got to talk about breaking news surrounding UFC 249. This card just could not take place without some kind of 11th hour drama, and we've got it because Jacare has tested positive for COVID-19. Jacare Souza was supposed to take on Uriah Hall. The fight has been canceled. But as of now, the fight card is still going on. I mean, there are a ton of people in the chat wanting to know, is it true? Did we hear about this? What are our thoughts? Some people are calling for the fight card to be called off. So, it was a telltale sign, the face-offs today, that Jacare Souza was the only fighter wearing gloves and a mask on the scale. I got a shot of that here. By the way, thanks for being with me. I'm playing host and engineer here, so I'm having to talk and flip screens here at the same time. Let me see if I can pull up a shot of this so you can see it too there, Frank. All right. Let's see there. Yep, there he is. And he's got the mask and the gloves on. Now, the other interesting thing about that is when they did the face-off, they were way far apart. They were like, the other guys, they didn't go nose to nose. They were, I guess, doing the MMA version of social distancing where that was concerned. But they were still, they weren't nose to nose, but they were still maybe more like a foot or two away from each other, except for Souza, who was easily 6 feet away from Uriah Hall. They knew then, I think, that something might be up because apparently, I believe Brett Okamoto over at ESPN say that Souza had told them when he arrived that a family member had coronavirus. So maybe they knew to keep him separate. Nonetheless, he's tested positive. So initial thoughts here, and hey, this whole thing ought to be called off now. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. It depends on. I wasn't there, and so making that call, for any of us to make that call, I think that we just don't have enough information. Was he working out in the same room with everybody else? Normally they do a blue corner and red corner. Mm-hmm. Is that what they're doing now? Did everybody have the same workout room? If that's the case, that means that if whether he was blue or red, that whole corner has been exposed to the virus.
By the way, Frank, if I can stop you there just because I have information on that. So watching the UFC embedded series, they were doing it differently. They were doing it was fighters were not going to be, as I understood it, whether it be, workout rooms, corners, all that, they were not going to be together. They, like, you would have a chance to go, and they would come in and sanitize everything. Oh, okay. So if they followed what they were saying they were going to do on embedded, I think the answer to that would be no, because they've taken extra precaution. You still there?
Can you hear me?
There, Frank? Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry, phone. Yeah. Wi-Fi cut out. Everybody's on video games inside.
Yeah, that's all right. We got you back. Go ahead. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think then that's a reason to keep it going forward. I think, I think that's showing responsibility on their part. I mean, you can't look, obviously the way to guarantee that there's no transmission is everybody stays in their house. But I think right now we've seen that we're trying to flatten the curve and not have spikes, and trying to figure out how to move forward. And I think that they're showing that they're being responsible. I mean, the fact that what you just told me, that they didn't have everybody in the same workout rooms, that they're trying to make, it's not like they're blowing this off, that it's no big deal. They're not calling it a hoax. They're not trying to be silly about it and go, we're just going to, it's going to be business as usual. Everybody else is crazy. No, they had the guy wear a mask. They had him wear gloves. They kept him at proper distance. But at the same time, respecting that, yes, this is a real issue, but we're also going to try to figure out how to fight through this and make this work without completely just folding over and giving up. And so I respect that. And I think that's the proper approach that we're all going to have to take going forward. I mean, it's like me right now. I just got back from the gym working out in a small group of guys, but we're all making sure, like the only group of guys that I worked out with, none of us have anybody in our family that's over 60 that lives with us. None of us have had a cold lately. We all talked about it. Hey, if any of us feel silly or feel funny, we're out. Call everybody else out, quarantine yourself, make sure we sequester. Let's do what we can to be as preventive as possible. Shower, wash our hands and do what, but let's still try to figure out a way that, hey, the four of us, let's get a workout in. Let's still be able to train and move forward. Obviously, it's not going to be how it was before, but it can still be done. It just has to be done with with understanding of moving forward.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, as long as you're doing it, I mean, the point of arguing the merits of doing this at this point is moot, because we're there and it's moving forward. But in terms of what if this happened and somebody tested positive, and what do you do at that point? Because that is a question that was asked hypothetically about this fight card. I will say this: observing all the distancing and everything makes sense and probably benefits. But if more comes of this, if someone else tests positive, especially if it's after the fact and it wasn't, you can't prove that they were contained. Oh my God, wait a second. They are already in there fighting someone. I don't know, something like that. The problem with the history being written is that nobody is going to break down the details of, Well, yes, Jacare was there, but he didn't come in contact with it. It would just be that Jacare had it. They put a mask and gloves on him, and they still put him out there on the scale. I'm not sure why they did that. I'm thinking if they knew that he was because he could still weigh in privately. I mean, unless you're just wanting to avoid having to make an announcement to people that this guy tested positive for corona, or had even been around someone who had it even before the test came in. Right.
Yeah, I'm
But
assuming that the reason why he weighed in with a mask is because he gave them knowledge that he was potentially exposed to the virus.
right,
So
right.
obviously at that point, they didn't have the test results back, because had the test results have come back, then why would you even have him weigh in? That makes no sense. You're going to pull him from the card. You're not going to have someone fight that has it. So I think at that point, it was still up in the air. And I think they were just showing proper, procedure, going, hey, there's a possibility that this guy's exposed, so we're going to make sure he's not transmitting to anybody else. I mean, that's the point of wearing the mask and wearing the gloves, is that, you're not going to keep yourself from being sick. You're trying not to spread the virus to others. So I thought that was actually a very good display of responsibility.
It is. It is. I'm just saying, I think had it been me, if I'd known he had been exposed, rather than, because it's going to be noticeable if he's the only guy wearing gloves and a mask. I mean, at first glance, it looks responsible. Then you find out that he may have been exposed, and you're like, okay, well, no wonder he was the only guy wearing the mask and the gloves. I'm just curious as to why you don't go ahead and weigh him privately. And there's nothing that says you have to weigh in any sort of public manner to make weight for a fight, and then find out what the results of that test are before you bring him out for a face-off.
But I mean, at that point, isn't it just overkill? I mean, the way he was, I mean, that's almost kind of like, back in the day saying, well, don't shake hands with an AIDS victim. It's like you learn to, like, well, no, it's not transferred that way. You're okay. You can touch them, knowing that, okay, you can have the coronavirus as long as you're wearing a mask and I'm staying away from you by 6 feet. I mean, that's the precautions right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something. But I guess what I'm saying, I don't know if I may not be doing a great job of communicating this, because I'm trying to read chat comments to it at the time. But I guess what I'm saying is, let's say it's you, right? And they bring you in and you haven't tested yet. We don't have your test results back. You're just being honest, and you say, hey, somebody that my family knows or something had corona. Then we go, okay, here's what we're going to do, Frank. We're testing everybody until we get that test result back from you. We're not going to bring you out for a face-off. We're going to weigh you in the back privately. You can go and say you made weight, and we're all good there. And then if we can bring you out for a face-off, we will. That way, if the test for you comes back positive, there's no photo of you and the opponent of the fight that we had to cancel anyway, even though they were 6 feet apart. That's the part I'm saying.
Yeah, I can kind of see your point a little bit. I guess I look at the photo and would go, oh, look, there was a possibility and they're being responsible. I still think it looks responsible. I can see how you're saying that other people might look at it and go, hey, look, that guy had the virus and he's up on stage weighing in. But so, I mean, I guess at that point, you're kind of playing devil's advocate, and the other way could have been even more secure. I personally felt that the way they did it was the right way.
Yeah, it's not. It's kind of, I think, like meeting in the middle. Like it was, they did a good thing by masking them up and keeping them apart. But I think it must have been that they didn't want to have to go so, because the test came back negative. They have to go so far as to, oh, we didn't put him out there, we didn't do the face-off or whatever. Yeah. Now he's negative and he can fight. I just think it's like more of a short-term fix versus a long-term fix. And I just worry about because there's so much attention on this. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's not like this is the third or fourth or fifth sporting event to take place since all this happened. It's the first, right?
Yeah.
And
so, I think what's going to be really the indicator of whether they were right or wrong is in, 2 weeks from now, did the virus, did anybody else catch it? Did anybody else transfer it to anybody that was there? Then that will be the smoking gun. That'll be like, well, this is, hindsight's going to be 2020. If all of a sudden, 2 weeks from now, Uriah Hall is healthy and has no issues and no one else that on the stage, I'll say, hey, look, there's someone with coronavirus. They put a mask and gloves on them. Everybody was safe. A-okay. We did a great job. Obviously, if in 2 weeks from now, half the people that were on the card come down with the coronavirus, that's going to be a very bad picture. So I think that basically we're going to wait 14 days and then I'll have a better answer for you.
Yeah. Well, it's a very controversial subject. A lot of people in the chat have opinions both ways. And we'll see if that's it. I mean, hopefully it's contained right there. Hopefully nobody else turns up, with it or feeling symptomatic or anything like that. All right. I mean, the two fights that we had planned to talk about were the co-main and then Olenek and Verdum. Anything else jump out at you? I mean, there are some people in the chat that maybe missed our other episodes talking about Cerrone and Pettis, and then also Ngannou and Rosenstruck. If you guys want to head over to our Patreon page, you can see our breakdowns there. But we both were very.
Any questions on these two fights that you can bring up?
Sure. Somebody wants to. Oh, on these hang on a second. I'll scroll back through. If anybody has questions on Cejudo and Cruz, or on Verdum and Olenek, or any of maybe any of the other fights we did not talk about, we can address those. Let me just go through here real quick, see if there's anything else anybody wants to add. Let's see here. Let me just check right here. Poor Gerald Lee. Gerald Lee's so tired of talking about Corona. It's depressing him. Well, I understand that.
I think you're with everybody, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just very quickly. Here's a question from Daryl. Wanted to know about the Ngannou Rosenstruck bout. Like I said, we did a real deep breakdown over on our Patreon page, but just to give an overview, I don't think either one of us thought this is going to be a great night for Rosenstruck. That, just like Ngannou may have had a little bit of a case of too much too soon when he ran into Stipe Miocic, that's probably going to be the case for Rosenstruck after, an upset over Alistair Overeem in his last fight that he was losing until he won it in the final few seconds of the round. Frank, just some broad strokes on that?
Yeah, basically, I mean, look, Rosenstruck is a very good striker for kickboxing, but kickboxing defense is different than MMA defense. I broke down the details of it in our last episode. But basically, you could see it, and the high percentage of strikes landed by Alistair Overeem on Rosenstruck. And Ngannou lands even 30% of the punches. It's going to be a bad night for him. Ngannou hits way too hard. He's too powerful. Plus, two, Rosenstruck is actually the worst of the two grapplers. So finally, Ngannou's in a fight that not only is he the harder puncher and he's very powerful and a very dangerous striker, if for whatever reason he gets tired or feels like he's in trouble, he's also the better grappler for once. So, I think Ngannou really is, obviously there's always a chance with the Rosenstruck. He hits very hard himself. But, I think more often than not, if these guys were to face up with each other, I'm taking Ngannou.
Yeah, same here. I would disagree with you on that. Hey, here's a personal comment, Frank, from Joe D. He says, Frank, tell the family who pays the bills, everyone off the Wi-Fi while Dad is working. Boy, guy who obviously has not been to the Mir house. How would that message carry over in the Mir household, do you think?
They wouldn't even take me seriously. And my youngest, if I try to get him off of Fortnite right now, I might actually have another grappling match on my hands.
Fortnite, that's the hot game right now?
Yeah, I think that's when he's playing. They're building structures. I try to sit there and watch and hang out. It's funny because I used to play video games so much when I was younger. I mean, all the way up until probably about 5 years ago. And then, honestly, I just kind of stopped. And I want to try to get back into it so I can play with my kids, but, now it's just finding time to get away from training and just, I have other things going on. And just sometimes it's like, I just need to stop making excuses and just set up a PS4 or an Xbox One in my room and just get online with them. Yeah.
You still doing the, I haven't seen you on your phone. Have you not been doing the Clash of Clans lately? Have you phased out of that?
A little bit less, just because I honestly I got into that because the kids, what was it, 5, 6 years ago, I saw them on it, and I realized that you could text people on there. And so I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you don't have social media for a reason. I don't want you
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
with people I don't know who they are. So I
Yeah.
jumped on and became part of their team so that I could just, see what was going on. And then I ended up becoming obsessed with it myself. And now they're like moved past that. And it's like old stuff to them. I every once in a while ask them, like, hey, you guys, play and get together. And they're on to the, Cage is a big Madden guy, and Ronan is big into the Fortnite and, all the first person shooters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, stalled with a little video talk there. Scroll over everybody's comments. Hey, here's an interesting one. This actually, let's see. Well, here, Stevie 100 WL says Francis will win since no wrestling will be involved, all stand up. I believe that. That makes a lot of sense. Here's Eric Rose. Bryce Mitchell fight should be legit. I agree. Boy, Bryce Mitchell is a guy to be watching. I agree. There's a couple of fighters on this card who are like next big thing type categories, and Bryce Mitchell is definitely going to be a fight I am not going to miss. How about this one, Frank? This one from Maria Gronin, or maybe Greenan. She will Stipe be stripped of his belt? I don't know if you've been following that this closely, but Stipe has just said that, I guess, the firefighting and Corona going on and his family and all that kind of stuff, he just feels like he can't fight while all this stuff is going on. And Dana's made some comments that, hey, if you can't fight, we may have to strip you of the heavyweight title and move on with the division. You think that would be that surprising if they did that?
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, I wouldn't agree with it. I think that right now, I mean, hell, Stipe is a first responder. He's a firefighter. If his job is taking it to where he has to put, the UFC belt a little bit on the back burner, I think that, we owe it to him to respect that, if you need the division to move on. I mean, we've held belts for guys for years, look what we did with Connor. I mean, they did with me off of an injury. I think that if there's ever been a reason to create an interim belt, while the champ is a little bit, maybe not able to defend, this might have been the most noblest of reasons. And on Stipe's part, I would think that I don't think it would look very good for the UFC to strip a firefighter for doing his job during the times that we're in right now of his belt. I just think that it would just, I can't see how to spin that in a very good way. I just see that as being a very, no, I wouldn't agree with it. If my vote counted, I would vote very strongly against it.
Well, yeah, and especially in a time where, there's going to be a backlog of fights. There's going to be once fights can really resume at full speed, there's going to be so many to catch up on. It's not if you don't put on a heavyweight title fight right away, you're going to be going, we don't have anything to show.
We're not pulling 4 or 5 UFC events a month right now.
Right.
I think, I think for every reason in the world, I can't think of one good one that would outweigh taking the belt away or stripping Stipe. I just don't. I think that he's earned the belt. I think that he's one of the best representatives we've had as a champion. Hell, man, the guy is a superhero. You know what I mean? Like, why would you take the belt from him because he's out, defending the world, right? Out there, as a firefighter. I mean, guy, that's like that. Just no, I wouldn't do it. I'd be, no. Stipe keeps the belt at most if you need to. Maybe an interim, can be brought into discussion. But even with that, I mean, it's a heavyweight division. It's not that deep. It's not like it's a backlog of guys. You're jamming it up. You know what I mean? If we were talking about the lightweight division, the different conversation, different, category. Not in the heavyweights.
It also, and this will circle back to just in terms of matchmaking. Actually, Tony Ferguson made me think of this earlier because Tony, I understand you saw at the face-offs. Tony Ferguson shows up with his belt. That's a new thing where if you've ever won a belt, people are showing up with belts, and it's confusing, because you're like, wait a second, okay. This person's we got one guy who's the champ. This is going to be, then you got something else for an interim title. But wait a second, who's got what belt? Or maybe somebody doesn't have either one. They're just bringing one because they have one. That gets very confusing. And it gets to my thought about interim title. Like everything doesn't have to be for a title or an interim title. I wish we could just put on a fight and say, this is a great, why are we doing this? A great fight. And maybe it's a contender eliminator. Maybe we could say, these are top guys, and the winner would very likely get a title shot with an impressive. It seems like now, and I don't know if that's the day and age of network, and, ESPN, and they got to have some kind of title fight to sell on the thing. But it seems like something's always got to be for a title, whether it's the legitimate title or it's an interim or a BMF or whatever.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I agree with you. I think they should make it a little bit more, way more on the substance of the fighter's name and not necessarily because of what they're fighting for.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll wrap on this, Frank. I'll put up Tino's comment here. There's a lot of people that have been saying something very similar. Everybody loves your commentary. And Tino asked the question, Frank, if you had any conversations with ESPN or UFC about a commentary role. You haven't been able to do any commentary in a while.
Yeah, actually, I haven't really just pushed it forward because honestly, I mean, with the way that things have been with Corona, I figured that everybody else has much bigger fish to fry. But now that the UFC is starting to put some shows out there, I'm going to start actually venturing out, making some phone calls. Yeah,
there you go. Well, and until that time comes, you can check us out right here, our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. And also our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/phone booth fighting. Once again, if you came in late, we do this free weekly podcast going on 5 years now on the Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. It's also available in iTunes and every place you get podcasts. But at patreon.com/phone booth fighting, we also do some extra content throughout the week. In fact, we had these very snazzy stay home coronavirus quarantine stickers made up that we're sending all of our Patreon members. So if you join up over there, we'll send you one of those in the mail as well. Some other cool stuff you're eligible for as well. So go check it out. Frank, tell everybody while we've got their undivided attention real quick about phoneboothfighting.com, the Amazon banner there, and how they can help the show with that Amazon banner. And of course, also the American Shaman banner.
Yeah, American Shaman is a great CBD company, guys. Phenomenal product. I take it religiously day and night. Check it out. Click on American Shaman. You can go through and get a discount on my phoneboothfighting.com. Also, the Amazon page on our website. By clicking on that and shopping on Amazon, you'll get all your wants and needs taken care of. But a small percentage of your purchase will come back and help us here out of the show at no extra cost to you. And if you're interested in Kratom, check out Mitrospec, again, on our website.
That's it. Once again, please like and subscribe to our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. We'd love to have you join us here on a regular basis. It's fun doing it live, right, Frank? With the and everything. Yeah.
I like the questions. I was getting nervous about my phone battery. That's why I was staring at it.
Yeah. We'll drop in some guests for you guys, too, on future episodes as well. For Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next time on Phone Booth